Shane Gisbergen has completed his second Xfinity Series race at Talladega Superspeedway at the track and finishes in 36th position after getting taken out with around 15 laps to go while running up front at Talladega. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel and welcome back to the video. As I just said a second ago, Shane Gisbergen has finished 36th at Talladega Superspeedway after getting crashed with around 15 laps to go at Talladega. Shane qualified up front very well, qualifying inside the top 10, which has been very rare on the Superspeedways. I think he had qualified inside the top 10 either at Atlanta or Daytona earlier this year, but actually qualified inside the top 10 in 8th position. Early in the race, Shane struggled a little bit. He actually stayed inside the top 10 early, but faded back quite a bit because he did say after the crash that he said his car was very, very loose and faded back a little bit. Started fading outside the top 10. Stayed up inside the top 10 in points as well, but started fading back quite a bit early in the race and dropped outside of the top 10. And near the end of stage number 1, Shane would unfortunately fall outside of the lead pack and fall back to 3 or 4 seconds. Now, to be fair, there were only about 10 or 11 cars inside the lead pack at the end of stage number 1, but Shane fell back to around 23rd or 24th, about a second or about 4 seconds back as they came to the end of stage number 1, with I believe Chandler Smith winning stage number 1. At the start of stage number 2, after getting some adjustments on the car, Shane would restart inside of the top 20 and actually started making some pretty aggressive and some really, really big moves. Started moving his way up to the front and actually got up inside the top 10 and was starting to make his charge up to the front. But he stayed up on that outside and inside and started fading back a little bit. But everything would change for Shane with around 10 or 11 laps to go in stage number 2 when the first crash would take place. Nick Lights got turned right behind Shane. Park Clergyman spun, nearly collected Shane in that wreck. Shane really almost got collected, but luckily was able to save it and not get involved. And a couple of guys like Jeb Burton were collected in the incident and wreck as well. He was right in front of that wreck and nearly got collected. Luckily, Shane did not get any damage in the wreck and was able to continue going. Now, I did see this for some people saying that NASCAR thought they were watching the left side. He had something hanging out of the car. Luckily, they weren't having anything hanging out and was able to continue. But Shane would make a little bit of a strategy play. He and guys like Riley Herbst would come down pit road to take 4 fresh tires and play the strategy, while guys up front like Sheldon Creed and Justin Allgaier and Austin Hill, they would stay out to try to get the stage points. And coming to the final restart of stage number 2 with around 5 laps to go, Austin Hill and Justin Love and Justin Allgaier and those guys were starting to make some really aggressive and great moves up front. But as it continued on, Shane was making some really great moves to the front as well. And he started using that outside, trying to get to the outside of the corner of some people, and it really started working for him. And he started charging up to the front at the end of stage number 2. He passed guys like Jesse Love coming to the line, passed other guys making their way up to the front, and got up inside of the top 5 and top 10. And I thought he was going to have a chance and opportunity to win the stage, but it was going to be really tough to beat Austin Hill at the end. Austin Hill will come off the corner, though, and win stage number 2. And Shane would come off the corner and finish inside the top 5 in stage 2, getting 7 stage points. That's really huge for Shane. 7 stage points that he can really use, consider what we'll talk about here in just a second. But Shane would get a lot of stage points, which would be really massive and huge for him. At the start of stage number 3, Shane would fall back a little bit, fall outside the top 10s. I think he took 4 tires once again, while guys like Jesse Love and Riley Herbst and those guys, they would take no tires and just take fuel. And on the restart, Shane would restart around 18th or 19th. And then he started actually making some really aggressive and some really good moves and got up in that outside once again and was one of the few guys that could really get the outside to work very, very well, and he was being extremely aggressive, but in a great way. And as the run progressed and went on, Shane started moving forward. He then, around 20, 30 laps to go in the race, Shane would pull his way down to the middle and start moving up to the front, and actually got up to the front of the pack with around 25 laps to go and was inside the top 3 or top 4, right in there contending for the lead and a potential win of the race. But then the middle started losing a little bit of ground, and he dropped down to the bottom of the racetrack and dropped back a little bit. But then the big moment of the race would happen with around 18 or 19 laps to go on lap number 76. Shane had gotten a little bit squirrely, and Dean Thompson tried to stick a nose where he really shouldn't have stuck his nose in, and Shane would get a little bit of sideways and squirrely and would go to the apron. Then coming through the tri-oval at Talladega, Jordan Anderson continued pushing Dean Thompson down the straightaway, and Dean just turned it left a little bit, got really sideways, and hooked Shane right across the racetrack and went, unfortunately, up the track and collected drivers like Austin Hill and, unfortunately, other drivers like Taylor Gray, who got clobbered heavily, and Josh Williams was also in the incident and wreck. And unfortunately, because of that, Shane had way too much damage on the race car, and sadly, that would end his day. And unfortunately for Shane, he would sadly end up getting a DNF and coming across the line and crashing out, finishing in 36th position. Just a big mistake there from Dean Thompson and Jordan Anderson, and putting a lot more of the fault on Jordan Anderson right there. That was just a terrible push right there. What these people need to understand is that you cannot be pushing in the tri-oval, because if you do that, you're going to cause a wreck. Dean kind of started that a little bit. Shane, yes, did get a little squirrely, but really I don't think Dean was fully at fault. I thought Dean was more at fault for the incident initially. When you look at the replay and incident, you can't be pushing in the tri-oval right there. It's because these cars do not go straight. To get a good push, you got to be straight. You can't be pushing through the tri-oval, and we've learned this so many times over the years, and drivers just haven't seemed to learn about that. And it's a shame, because Shane literally was getting to the apron, getting out of the way, and just got taken out there for absolutely no reason. It was completely unnecessary from those drivers back there. It's inexperienced, and Jordan has a lot of experience, so he should know better about that, considering he's contended for wins in the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series at Super Speedways. He should know better than that. And I feel bad for Shane, because Shane was doing everything he needed to do and was going to come out of today looking really good going to the Roval. Unfortunately for Shane, because Sammy Smith went on to win the race, Shane is going to the Roval 21 points below the cutoff line. Now here's a positive for Shane. We're going to the Roval, their new configuration. And Shane, we know, is going to have a big advantage at that race. So I'm not too worried about Shane going to the Charlotte Roval. But man, it's so frustrating, because the last couple Super Speedway races, Shane had been progressively getting better. In the last couple races, he's just caught some terrible breaks, and it's just been super, super unlucky. And it's just tough to see him get involved in a wreck like this. That wasn't his fault, unfortunately. Just people making bad moves and mistakes. Yes, he did get a little squirrely, and that does happen from time to time, inexperience. But he was aggressive today. Had one of his better Super Speedway races going and was up in position to challenge for the win. He's gotten better on ovals. We've all seen it. He's ran really good at these types of tracks. He's gotten a lot of top 10s, a lot of top 15s recently. I think there's only his 6th finish outside of the top 20 all year, which shows the consistency throughout the year. And I feel bad for Shane, though, because he was doing a very solid and great job. But now he's got to focus on the Cup race tomorrow. And he's got that big announcement tomorrow. The Trackhouse is going to be revealing tomorrow morning, which I think we're going to talk about on the channel tomorrow. But just a tough break for Shane to get taken out of a wreck that really wasn't his fault. And of course, he needs this experience and get as many laps as possible running up front at these types of tracks. Because outside of the road courses, I'm not sure he's going to be running up front as consistently on the Cup tracks, on the intermediates especially. Yes, he'll have a full prepared Trackhouse car, but I'm not expecting him to contend for wins on ovals throughout the year. He's going to be competing against guys like Kyle Busch and Bubba Wallace and Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott and all those guys, and maybe Carl Busch in the future. But I think he did a really good job until the crash. He was running up front, just caught up in a bad wreck incident that really wasn't his fault. Tough break for him, unfortunately. But now the main focus is going to the Cup race tomorrow and trying to get experience in that and see if he can run up front in the Cup Series race tomorrow afternoon at Talladega Super Speedway. So, that is going to be it for today's special Shane Van Gisbergen episode. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, and if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support on Patreon as well. Let's go below that and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. How do you think SVG performed today at Talladega? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Tomorrow on the channel, see the starting lineup video for the race at Talladega Super Speedway. Talk about drivers like Bubba Wallace, Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch, you name it. Maybe Carlos Busch as well, and Haley Deegan maybe in the future. You also will see, if depending on how big that SVG announcement is, we'll talk about that on the channel potentially. And then you also see the Cup review and another Shane Van Gisbergen video probably will be dropping after the Cup race concludes at Talladega. And then Monday we'll have a NASCAR news video discussing news over the course of the last couple of days. We've got more updates on the 2311 stuff and Denny Hamlin's comments and some other media members discussing that as well. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.